that they actually blow up, right? And the Death Star actually blow. Everybody's seen Star Wars, right? These aren't spoilers. I probably should have asked that about a half an hour ago. But so the Cloud City. This was Alderaan. Alderaan was supposed to be like Leia's home. How much more of an impact does it make when the Death Star blows up not a city, but an entire planet, right? But we had this idea, they had this concept art, and so what they ended up doing is they took this and they said, let's make this, and I'm putting ideas in their heads and how they did it, but this actually ends up showing up, even though it was a scrapped idea for Leia's home, it shows up later on as the Cloud City of Bespin in The Empire Strikes Back. Right? We have to be able to iterate. This, who does this look like right here? Can you see that?
This is the Wookiee.
Yoda.
It looks like Yoda, but that was the original concept for Chewbacca. Right? Still huge, tall, but he kind of looked like Yoda. Right? You can see earlier versions of R2, 3PO here, the protocol droid, different versions of, I don't know who those really are. Maybe that's Leia with Luke, I'm not sure. But they had these concepts. Does anybody watch the Clone Wars? The animated series? There's actually a character in Clone Wars that looks very similar to this version of the Wookiee. Right? These concepts, they may have died at a certain point, but maybe we weren't ready for them yet. We have to continue to iterate. Every solution that we create in accessibility, we need to treat it like it's our best understanding at the time and be willing to iterate from there and continue on. And we make things better by doing that. Now, I like the continued evolution of where we're going, and I had to throw these in because these scenes from the new movie that are coming out from J.J. Abrams, seeing these X-Wings flying right at water level and seeing everything spray, the detail that's in there, this is very exciting as the next iteration, and these are going to be better than Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones for sure. I mean, Executive Order 66. I mean, really? Come on. And if you don't know Star Wars, you know what I'm talking about. Just nod and smile, and I'll be okay with it. These scenes from Star Wars, and this one here too, with this ridiculous lightsaber that I don't care if it's unrealistic. I just want to see that, right? I don't care, but this is like the next iteration, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, this would never work. That's a guard that's supposed to prevent." Like, the lightsaber's going to go right through that. It's not protective at all. And, like, who cares? Just watch the movie. This is going to be awesome. Right? We need to face these kinds of things and move on from them. How many times in accessibility have you heard, that'll never work? Or that's unrealistic? Right? It doesn't matter. We keep doing it anyway. And we keep pushing forward. I like when people tell me that something can't be made accessible. I want you to believe that, so that when I show you that it can be, you're like, well, holy crap. How did you do that? I remember making in 2005, we were working with a client, and they were doing an e-learning project, and they had the most inaccessible online crossword puzzle that they could possibly have. And it was online, like e-learning, and it was a crossword puzzle. We're like, how do we do that? And so they said, well, we can't make that accessible. And so my thought was like, let's try it. Like, let's try this and figure out how we do it. And we made a reasonably accessible, it's definitely not the best thing in the world, but a reasonably accessible crossword puzzle, just because we were willing to look past these kinds of things. That it won't work, that it's unrealistic, or that, it's too expensive, or whatever it is. We pushed past that, and we made something that worked reasonably well. I don't know if you remember the scenes from the original version. Do you remember when we had the original version of Star Wars, and then in like the early to mid 90s, they had the whole new sound creation, the THX system, and then they re-released all of the Star Wars movies, and what they ended up doing, I don't know if you remember these scenes, but they started to change things. So they had like original scenes, but then they put these other these other characters and animals and beasts in the back doing other things, because at the time that George Lucas wanted to originally create these, the technology didn't exist for the CGI that was required to be able to do this. Right, this is from a scene from Star Wars, which was like late 70s, 1977. So this technology didn't exist back then, so they added that in later. I have no problem with that kind of stuff. This is like, this doesn't change the story, right? This is effectively us saying, we're going to put some different CSS on some really solid HTML, right? We're changing the way it looks, but the core of it is still the same. Not so true for this bit. One of my favorite scenes in the cantina on Mos Eisley. Love it. Except when the re-released version came out, this happened. And you can see that this is such a lie. This is the biggest lie ever told in the Star Wars universe. I don't know, I'm going to play this again. We'll probably play this 100 times. Because you watch Han, and in the re-released version, they take his head and they like move it out of the way, like, oh, Greedo shot at me, so I have to shoot him back. Right? Sorry, but Han shot first. He shot first. And they changed the meaning of what Han's character was. Right? That's changing the HTML. They're telling a completely different story. Right? We're thinking of adding things in as these flourishes in the background, these other characters walking around, totally fine. Do that. But this changed the story. And that was a change in effectively in the HTML that was behind it. I'm making that, I know that's if you don't want that analogy, you can just let that go and pretend. The important part is that Han shot first.
How long have you had these?
About 3 or 4 seasons.
They're up for sale if you want them.
Let me see your identification.
You don't need to see his identification.
We don't need to see his identification.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
He can go about his business.
You can go about your business.
Move along.
Move along. Move along.
I love this lesson. The lesson here is that if you speak with an English accent and hold your finger and thumb together and wave your other 3 fingers, you can make anybody believe anything. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Now, how does this relate to accessibility? People are going to come to you and they're going to ask you for something very specific. Right? This happens in not just accessibility, but in design in general. Right? Your stakeholders ask you for something specific, like maybe a text resizing widget. Hey, we need to have a text resizing widget on the page because that's good for accessibility. Right? We need to be okay with that, but then consider that maybe we want to use some Jedi mind tricks on them and say that this is not the solution you're looking for. Right? Yes, what you're after is the ability for somebody to be able to change the text size on their page. But let's give them something that maybe is a better solution or a better tool, right, for doing that, rather than using an in-page text resizing widget, just as an example. Right? We always try to find the things that people are looking for, and we want to use those to accomplish our goals. I mean, we can battle over this, right? I can battle with somebody and say, no, we're not going to give you that, or I can give you that, but put the things that I want to go into that as well. Right? So on a text resizing widget, we often, if we implement those, we also add in a thing that leads to a page that teaches people how to resize the text on their own in their browser on any page, on any site, anywhere on the web. Right? Give them the thing that they want, but let's build in the thing that we know that they actually need as well. We're almost done, I promise.
See? You can do it. I call it luck. In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
Look, good against remotes is one thing. Good against the living, that's something else.
I love this because this is, a great scene where Luke is starting his training as a Jedi. But Han's reaction to Luke actually battling this little remote, right? This little remote bot that is shooting at him. Hands reaction is perfect. Good against remotes is one thing. Good against the living is something else completely. Right? In accessibility, we want to remember that we're actually creating for people, not for machines. And I know that a lot of accessibility, we talked about this today, you've heard this, that there is an overemphasis on screen reader, screen reader, screen reader. We want to make sure that we're not building for screen readers and creating things that are screen reader compatible. We want to make things that are really accessible. Good against machines or good against remotes is one thing, good against the living is another. This is a famous scene. I love this one as well.
Only a precise hit will set up a chain reaction. The shaft is ray shielded, so you'll have to use proton torpedoes.
That's impossible, even for a computer.
It's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T-16 back home. They're not much bigger than a T-meter.
I love that. This is, they're planning their attack on the Death Star. Luke and Biggs are talking about this. And they're basically saying, this is impossible. We can't do this. We don't have the technology to do that. And the fact that the Empire randomly left this exhaust port unguarded and completely wide open. George Lucas put that in, I'm sure, is like, yeah, people won't even think about that. We need to think of our websites and our applications in this way a little bit, in that one little tiny, small, overlooked hole in a technological marvel can bring the whole system down. Right? When we're thinking about accessibility, we can't just think about about this form or that form or these links and how they work. We have to look for every hole. The only way to do that is to think big picture. And so one of the things we've worked with lots of clients over the last 15 years, and I remember working with a bank that when we were doing some testing on their online banking system, what happened was the screen reader user, this gentleman that was using the screen reader, called into the customer support line to get his bank card activated. He was calling to get his bank card activated so that he could do some online banking. And when he got there, or when he made the phone call, the customer service rep on the other end of the phone said, "Sure, we can do this. We'll get you set up. What's your bank card number?" And the guy, and he fires up JAWS to read his bank card number to him. He's got it stored in a text file. And it starts to read it out, 5268384, whatever it was. And the customer service rep on the other end of the phone said, "Sir, is there somebody there in the room with you?" No, it's just me. Oh, okay. 5682843, whatever it was. "Sir, I can hear somebody there. There's somebody with you in the room. For security and privacy reasons, I can't continue this call." Click. Legit security and privacy concerns, because this guy could be being coerced into doing something with his bank account. So there's legit security and privacy concerns there. But the customer service rep had no idea how to deal with that very legitimate and easily overlooked accessibility scenario. He actually had to call back several times. He had to memorize, at that point, he had to memorize his bank card number, because he couldn't have that conversation, or what seemed to be another person in the background of that conversation.
You, what God am I? The last of the Jedi.
Sorry, I need, if you're feeling sad at all, you might want to look away. I forgot to warn you. This is one of the saddest moments in Star Wars history. Oh, wow.
Only a precise hit will...
You, what God am I? The last of the Jedi, would you be? The Force is all in your family. That's all what you have done.
This is one of the most important lessons for accessibility ever. We build up this accessibility knowledge, this skill, this expertise, and we don't do enough of this to pass on what we have learned. And I'm guilty of this as well. we'd learn all these things. I'm like, oh, I need that. That's mine. It's not mine. But I need to do more of this. I need to pass on more of what I've learned. We all need to do that. We need to do more events like this. We need to do bigger events like this. We need to find more ways to pass on what we have learned. One of my final favorite scenes here. A really important lesson. Luke, in Empire Strikes Back, travels to Dagobah to train with Yoda. And you can see him here. He's standing on one hand. He's using the Force. He's got Yoda on the top of his foot, doing a one-handed handstand. And they're doing this training. And one of the things that happens here is that Yoda says, okay, this is cool. You're doing this stuff. Now try to pick up those rocks with the Force. And so Luke starts to pick up the rocks. And you can see one here. It's like about 3 feet off the ground. And he gets about 3 feet off the ground. And then he gets distracted by something. And the rock falls. And he falls. And Yoda ends up with mud all over him. It's like, oh, really? And Yoda gets mad at
We'll
Luke.
never get it out now.
So certain are you? Always with you what cannot be done. Do you nothing that I say?
Master, moving stones around is one thing. This is totally different.
No different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No. Why not? Do. Or do not. There is no try.
One of the most important and impactful statements in a movie ever. And an incredible lesson for accessibility. Right? You heard what Yoda said there. Always with you it cannot be done. Because Luke is like, I could barely lift up those stones, dude. How am I going to lift my X-Wing up out of the swamp? Right? We can barely get alt text on something right. How are we going to make this entire app accessible? Right? I'll try. No! Try not. Do or do not. There is no try. We don't have a choice. We do this. This is what we do. We don't try. We do. That's what we are. We're doers. So Luke decides, okay, I'll try. I will do. So he reaches out and he starts to lift the X-Wing up. He gets it up just like the rock and it starts to move and you can see the bubbling. He gets it up there and he just starts to get it out of the water and he's like, I can't do this. And he lets it go and it falls back down there. It's too big. And then Yoda comes in, says, why? Judge, it's not about size. Judge me by my size, do you? Luke gets all dejected. He's like, he doesn't get it. He wants to leave, and he can't leave because he can't get his X-Wing up out of the... That didn't sound right at all. Can't get his X-Wing out of the swamp. And so Yoda steps in.
I don't believe it.
That is why you fail.
Yoda's like less than 3 feet tall. The dude's 900 years old. Luke young, strong with his body, but maybe not with his mind. Right? I don't believe it. That is why you fail. Your belief that you have in what we do in accessibility is one of the most important things that you can take forward, ever. Because if you don't believe, you will fail. And I know that that is not what this group is about. Right? We will take it forward, we will believe, and we will continue to win this. Small wins pile up, and they make for big wins. We have a story to tell. We want to continue to tell it. So please take that with you as you go forward to try and make things more accessible for everyone. Right? That's why we're doing this. With that, I think it's time to say we're done.